Hello, Mr. Chu here. Working a couple problems. We're going to solve some proportions in my math curriculum that I call Tray Arithmetic, which has regular arithmetic and pre-algebra in it. We're solving proportions by cross multiplying. And I talked about in my original video when I taught how to do this, I called it the butterfly method. So I challenged students afterwards to work these two problems. So let's see how these two problems work out here. So I'm just going to put a little line here so that I can have one on the left, one on the right. Remember, I said that you cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply the numerator on the left times the denominator on the right. It's 2a times 4 equals 12 times 10. Now, this ends up being a one-step equation we solve by doing inverse operations after I simplify both sides. 2a times 4 is 8a. 12 times 10 is 120. Anytime I have a coefficient times a variable equaling a number, I can solve that by doing the inverse operations of multiplying by 8. So the inverse of multiplying by 8 is divide by 8. But I have to divide both sides. That's called the division property of equality when you're writing all the reasons down for that. So 8 over 8 is 1. 1 times a is a. And 120 divided by 8. This is a arithmetic review. So let's take our 120 and let's long divide by 8. Just review how to do that. 8 cannot divide evenly into 1, but it can go into 12 one time. 1 times 8 is 8, and I subtract that out of my original 12. 12 minus 8 is 4. I bring down my 0. 8 goes into 40. 5 times 8 is 40. When you get a 0 here, it means it terminated, which means that it came up with a whole number or integer answer, and it ends up being 15. Now, how do you check that? To check that, I take my original, and instead of writing an A, I write a 15. So I have 2 times 15. Does that equal, and I put a question mark there, 10 over 4, and that's over 12. So now I do the butterfly method. After I simplify this, 2 times 15 is 30 over 12. We'll do our butterfly now, because I want these as simple as I can get them. So there's my first wing of the butterfly. 30 times 4, does that equal 12 times 10? 30 times 4 is 120. 12 times 10 is 120. It worked. That means that A really does equal 15. So that is our one-step equation. Now let's do our two-step equation. The reason I know it's going to be two-step is because of this, what's called a binomial in the numerator. So when we do our butterfly method here, I have 14 times 5 equals 2, and I have to write the 3 plus b in parentheses because it is a quantity, an amount in that numerator. So now my first step in solving this is simplification. 14 times 5 is 70. And I have to do the distributive property here. 2 times 3, that 2 has to be multiplied by everything in the parentheses, plus 2 times b. So now I have to simplify the 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 2b. All right, so now I've got to undo the plus 6. And I do that by the inverse operation, which is subtract 6. The 6 minus 6 is 0, and 0 plus 2b is 2b. 70 minus 6 is 64. Now, again, I'm starting to run out of room, so I'm just going to rewrite this over here. So now, I don't want 2b's, I just want 1b, so I do the inverse or opposite of multiplying by 2, which is divide by 2. And I do the same thing to both sides using the division property of equality, which means that the equation still equals on both sides. 2 over 2 is 1, and 1 times b is b. 64 divided by 2 is 32. So I believe the answer is 32. How do I check it? I go back to my original, and I substitute wherever there's a b, I put a 32. And I put a question mark above the equal sign. I have to do the 3 plus 32 first before I cross multiply. Put my question mark. I do 14 times 5. Does that equal 2 times 35? 14 times 5 is 70. Does that equal 70? Sure does. Now, if you'd be counting steps, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And yes, when I was teaching pre-algebra, when I was introducing this, I made them write out 11 steps. So we have problems 1 and 2. Up here will be a link to my original lesson, which was called 3A. And down here will be a link to more arithmetic and pre-algebra videos in a playlist. So you'll be able to click on it and see several different ones. I'm Mr. Chu. I call my arithmetic and pre-algebra Trey Arithmetic. And I want to teach you math. Let me explain it to you so you understand. See you next time.